Hi, Tony DeWitt here. I've had a number of requests to do some explanation on the Bryant shooting. So in just a moment, we'll dig right into that. Bryant's shooting was a tragedy. It's always a tragedy when you lose a young life that, for whatever reason, didn't need to be lost. It's not a criticism of the police. I don't intend to criticize the police in this video. I do intend to criticize the adults that were present for not taking action to prevent this. One of the people who was there was apparently a foster parent and could have exercised control over this girl to make sure that she didn't grab a kitchen knife and go outside. But that's what happened, and at the end of the day, you lose a young lady simply because somebody failed to rein in her impulse to angrily attack someone else over what was probably the most petty of grievances. So in looking at a shooting, you can look at it from two sides, right? The first being the officer and what happened, and the other being the individual and what was going on with her. So let's look at it first from the standpoint of the officer involved. The officer involved was responding to a 911 call where there were reports of someone being stabbed. Someone had a knife, someone was being stabbed. So what does the officer know as he's responding? Well, the first thing he knows is that there's a deadly weapon involved. A knife is just as deadly as a gun within 21 feet. Anyone within 21 feet of someone armed with a knife is in mortal peril because a person can cross 21 feet in 1.5 seconds. That is faster than most police officers can draw their firearms. So, armed with a knife, this woman was a lethal threat. Now, being a deadly threat doesn't necessarily justify somebody shooting her. She had to be a present deadly threat to someone else. If you watch the video, what you see is her being involved in knocking one woman to the ground. At which point an adult male comes up and kicks that woman in the head. The body cam then swings from that interaction to where the girl is headed toward a girl who's dressed in bright pink. You can't help but see the woman in bright pink. And if you focus closely, you can see the knife. And you can hear the officer tell her to drop it or stop and try to convince her to stop her attack. But as these things go, the attack was going full force, irrespective of what was being said. This young woman was not listening to anyone. She was angry and she was in attack mode, and she went to stab that young lady. And as a result, the police officer fired 4 shots, and they were fatal. I would point out here that it's really important to remember that when police officers shoot, they shoot to stop the attack. They don't shoot to wound. They don't shoot knives out of people's hands. They are not that good a marksman. I don't believe most expert marksmen could do something like that. Rather, they stop the threat. And unfortunately, the way that you can be the most certain of stopping a threat is to put rounds into someone's thoracic cavity. And that's what happened here. And again, the result was fatal. It is completely, I believe it is journalistic malpractice to focus on shooting the girl who held the knife and ignore the fact that the officer was shooting to save the life of the woman that she was attacking. And I've seen that be the focus of most of the news coverage on this, and I think it's really very, very much a shame, because anytime a police officer acts with deadly force, he's either protecting himself, his partner, or a member of the public. And in this case, it was a member of the public. And that is quite sad. So now let's look at it from the standpoint of Ma'Khia Bryant and her family. One of the things that is alleged to have been said by Ma'Khia's mom is that she was defending herself from the other women with that knife. Well, if you're going to make a self-defense claim, you have to remember that you have to have a number of things. The first thing you have to have is a present, imminent, deadly threat. Neither the woman that got thrown to the ground nor the woman in pink were armed. Neither of them had knives. Neither of them had guns. All I can tell is that they may have been ugly to this young woman, may have hit her. Okay, that's bad, but it's not the end of the world. The point is, none of them were a lethal threat to this girl. Now, it is possible to defend yourself with a knife. If someone is attacking you, you run in the house and you grab a knife and you hold it up. And that will, in most cases, stop even a very determined person from causing you further harm. Unless they too have a knife, in which case you're in the middle of a knife fight. But generally speaking, the way you defend is you move away from the attack. You don't move toward it. If you watch the video footage involved in this, what you see is her moving first to the woman who gets slung to the ground and then to the woman in pink. She is not retreating. She is not defending. She is, in fact, attacking. That is not self-defense. The other issue with regard to self-defense is that you have to be someone who is defending. You cannot be the aggressor. If you are doing the attacking, you are the aggressor. And then finally, fear for her life. Now, I don't see any evidence that this woman was in fear of her life, or that she could have had any reasonable fear for her life from the people who she attacked. If she was going to have a fear for her life, the only person that she really had a threat from was the police officer who was telling her to drop the knife. Instead, she believed that because she was a child, or because she was a teenager, she had better judgment than just a 6-year-old. Let's be honest here. She's a 15-year-old girl, 15 or 16. I forget what age they're reporting today on it. But she's a teenager. She has better judgment than that. But she believes she can get by with getting in probably, a stab or two before something bad happens. And she probably thinks the only thing she has to worry about is a taser. But when someone is being attacked with a lethal weapon, the only appropriate response is lethal force. It isn't to half-step. And people who say that they should have used a taser don't understand. If you watch the channel called Police Activity here on YouTube, every time they try a taser on some of these people, it doesn't work. They pull off the wires, or the wires don't work, or the taser doesn't do the job that it's supposed to do. Tasers are not 100% effective. By my evaluation, they're about 30% effective. So here's what I see at issue in this case. This is a young lady with an anger management problem. She has what could be considered a mental disease or defect. She can't handle her anger. And when that anger gets unfocused and let loose, it becomes a homicidal rage. And unfortunately for her, it cost her her life. And again, If you want to start looking at people who could have done something to stop this, the people who could have done something to stop it were the adults who were present, either by withdrawing the other people so that she didn't have an object to go attack, or by corralling her and telling her that she needed to go back and leave these people alone. Either way, it was a failure of adult guidance and supervision, and it was also a failure of her inability to control her anger. Now, I think it's important to note that if this young woman were a white girl, I would have the same opinion. And if the police officer who shot her was a black man, I would have the same opinion. Because facts don't care about race. And they don't care about ethnicity. Facts are facts. And lethal force is sometimes necessary to prevent a deadly attack. And when it claims the life of a 16 or 15-year-old girl, yes, that is a tragedy. But you don't make that tragedy better by exploiting it. And that's what's being done. It's being exploited. And I think that needs to stop. Well, that's my opinion. For those of you who wanted to know, that's how I feel about this. I hope I've answered your questions, and I hope if you have any questions further, you would leave them in the comments down below. That also helps feed the YouTube algorithm. And if you would subscribe, because then you would be notified every time I release a video on this channel. Thank you so much for watching. Have a terrific day.